Hello! I thought it might be interesting this evening to take a little look at VirtualFlight.Online. This is the community I founded about 2 years ago, around the time that Flight Simulator started. When we first started the website, or when I first started the website, it was really the home of the transmitter software. So this was the small program I wrote, which you may have seen on the internet, that allows you to share your position in the world with other people, so you can see it in applications like Little Nav Map. So if we go and look at who is online, for example, you can see right now there are a number of people using it all over the place. If you look in there on a weekend evening, there can be up to 100 people using it, sometimes a lot more than that even. So yeah, in the early days, Transmitter was the reason for VirtualFlight.Online to exist. It was just a home page somewhere to give away the software from. Very quickly we started hosting group flights, because obviously that's what Transmitter was originally made for. So we started hosting group flights, so we started a Discord server and we started advertising on the Microsoft forums. And then that progressed for about a year, and the group flights got more and more popular, and everybody that was taking part made friends all over the world, and they still, come in and join the flights even now. And we sometimes get 70, 80, 90 people taking part now. It's getting a bit crazy. But alongside the group flights, there was always this idea that what if we could start a virtual airline? And obviously there are lots and lots of virtual airlines around, but it was kind of, our group flights had always been very relaxed. And we were thinking, could it be done? Could we make a virtual airline where it was a little bit more relaxed, where it was a little bit less strict, and where people wouldn't be, told off for not doing things in quite the right way, or that they would be able to fly basically whatever airplanes they wanted, and we could maybe give them routes and events and tours and all kinds of things for them to go and fly in whatever airplane they wanted. So that's how VirtualFlight.Online, the airline, came about, and that's what we're going to have a look at. So if you visit VirtualFlight.Online on the internet, and then you click on the virtual airline link either at the top or halfway down the page, join the virtual airline. If you click on it, it tells you a little bit about it, and there's a getting started guide, and it talks about ACARS and the ranking and all sorts of things. We're not going to get too much into that tonight. We're just going to have a look at the virtual airline and go book a flight and fly it, and get the system to record that we flew it. Okay, so if we go to the crew center, when we get to the airline, we can log in, or if you haven't got an account, obviously you can join the virtual airline. So I'm going to log in as myself, and you can see I go straight to my profile page when I log in, and it shows you my last flight that I did. If I go to the front page of the airline and scroll down, you can see anybody that's flying right now. You can see any latest news. You can also see the latest flights that have been dispatched or are being flown. You can also see the last 10 that have landed and their landing rates, and if you want to, you can go and click on one of these and see the details about the flight and how well the person did and where they flew. So how do we do that? How do we go and book one of these flights and go and fly it? So all we have to do while we are logged into the VirtualFlight.Online website is go to the Tours and Events page, pick something we want to have a go at taking part in, and there's all sorts of tours all over the world. It's worth pointing out there are more than just tours. There's also scheduled flights, and you can also do free flights as well. You can also do charters. So if you were to go over to dispatch directly, you can dispatch, so you can fly from wherever to wherever you want. So if we go back to tours, I'm coming into tours because there are some familiarization events in here called the student pilot tours. So when you are a new member, this will be your first place to go to learn the ropes, really. So we're going to do one of them. We're going to go to Flight School USA. So this takes us to Frederick, the home of AOPA in America, so Frederick Municipal. So we are going to go and choose one of the flights. Now you can see for this particular event there are 3 legs we can choose from, and each of them uses a specific aeroplane. So we're going to do the middle one, the C172. Now all the flight school event really is, if we go and view this event, is a training session in the 172. All we have to do is take off from Frederick, and we can see the information on Frederick in the website. Take off from Frederick, land at Frederick. Okay, so to book that, so we can actually go fly it, we just click on dispatch flight. So that will dispatch, and it comes back with like a mini briefing of where we are in the world and the details of the flight, of the leg. If we go to the dispatch center, we get a more detailed briefing. So this has got information on the wind, so we can go and find Frederick on the map if we so choose to, and see the windy information. We can see the detail here from the breakdown of the METAR from the aviation weather website. So you get all kinds of information straight away. If you use SimBrief, you can actually dispatch directly to SimBrief from here, and it will make the flight plan. Obviously that doesn't make much sense for this one because it's just flying from and to Frederick, basically to go and do a circuit. So what do? We've dispatched the flight. How do we get this into the simulator? So alongside all of this, I've got Flight Simulator running. So I will open the simulator, and you can see I've already got the map set up. I've got a Cessna 172 ready to go. Let's go and look at flight conditions. We'll have the live weather, please. Oh, it's actually raining cats and dogs, so maybe we won't. We're going to go for preset weather, and we'll have few clouds, please. And we'll set the time maybe to a bit earlier in the day, so lunchtime or early afternoon. So there's no requirement to have live weather. That's the first thing. So we're going to pick the 172 because that's what we said we were booking on the flight. We'll pick a starting place on the ground and click fly. So the simulator will now load, and while it's loading we can go and have another look at a little program that's running alongside called ACARS. So this is a free download. When you come into the airline, if you go into your own name in here, when you are logged in, there's a downloads section. Within the downloads section is the ACARS software. This is all covered as well on the VirtualFlight website. If you go into the airline guide, there's a specific section on ACARS telling you what you need to install. So you need FSUIPC, which is a free piece of middleware. It just sits on your computer and runs in the background. What FSUIPC does is connects the simulator to any other programs that are running, in this case ACARS. So it allows the ACARS program to see what's happening inside the simulator. Okay, and then there's all sorts of tips here about what I'm just about to show you. So how to dispatch a flight, how to start and end the flight. Okay, so let's come back out of there. We can minimize that. So this is the ACARS program. I'm going to log in as me, and it says welcome back Jonathan, and you can see the flight is already here. Yeah, if we had the wrong flight in here, or if we'd been in the website and changed it while this was running, we can fetch it again from dispatch. Yeah, and it will pop up in here immediately. So from Frederick to Frederick, and we can fill in any details like an alternate. So say we were in the air while we were flying and we wanted to go and land at a different airport, we can put the alternate in and go land there. Altitude we're going to fly at? Well, we're only going to fly at probably 1500 feet. Passengers? None. Cargo? None. No remarks. And we'll say start the flight. He says, have you loaded the required fuel into your flight? Well, actually, no we haven't, not yet, because we haven't started the simulator. So let's go in the sim. Ready to fly. So we are on the ground at Frederick on a nice sunny day now. And we're going to go and check the fuel. So it's all looking good. We've got half a tank of fuel in our little Cessna. So let's go back over to ACARS and say start flight. Have you loaded the required fuel into your aircraft? Yes, we have. Please note that when flying GA low-level flying aircraft, you must reach at least 500 feet above ground level in order for the ACARS flight to be valid. Fine, okay. The flight has started in ACARS. It's now watching what we are doing. So we can just minimize it. Yeah, ACARS does a lot more than just watching us. We can play the radio on it, we can talk to each other, we can look at logs, but all we're going to do today is record this flight. So if we remove the yoke in the Cessna, I've got to remember how to fly a Cessna now. So mixture on rich, fuel is already open, turn the master power and the alternator on, turn the beacon light on before we start the engine. We'll turn the nav light on as well, just for good measure. Throttle open a small amount and then turn the aircraft over. And it didn't start. That's interesting. Oh, of course, I've forgotten. There's a shut-off valve in the updated Cessna. I'd completely forgotten about it. There we go, we have an engine. So I'm just going to move the microphone a bit further away from me so I'm not too loud on it. Okay, so engine's running, we're ticking over, and all of the dials are looking good. So we are going to go and now turn on the avionics master switches. So the GPSs will fire up. We're not actually going to use GPS today. We're just going to go and fly a quick circuit just to show you what ACARS does. Okay, so the Garmins are just booting up. While we're waiting for them, we could go and turn on the ADF. We're not going to use it, but we'll switch it on just for completeness. We can also go and turn on the transponder to standby for the moment, and we'll say enter and enter, enter and enter, let it capture the satellites. And it would just be handy to have it as a visual reference while we're flying. Okay, it shouldn't take too long. Okay, there we go. So we can zoom in on our location. We can see exactly where we are in terms of the airfield. We're going to go and change this to show the data screen. There's no point having two maps up. Okay, calibrate the altimeter. Come off the parking brake. Flaps to takeoff position. Let's have a look at our aeroplane on the ground here at Frederick. So we're going to do an immediate U-turn and go straight out to the runway behind us again. And we'll taxi round and out onto the runway. Okay. Hopefully we don't chop the ground crew to pieces with the propeller. So what ACARS will be doing is watching that we are not taxiing too fast. It will be watching that we have the landing lights on below 10,000 feet because it's got like a simplified rules set. It's one of the only downsides to it, is it kind of treats you as if you are commercial traffic. So we just need to make sure we keep our taxi speed down. So while we are en route to the runway, we can go and turn on the landing lights now, and the taxi lights, and the strobe lights, and our pitot heat. So we're going to go straight out to the runway and then take off. Put the yoke back on. There's hardly any wind today. It's about 2 or 3 knots worth of wind. Of course, we're running few clouds, aren't we, on the weather, because it was tipping down with rain at the real location. Okay, so straighten up on the runway. Full throttle. 40 knots. 50 knots, 60 knots, and rotate, and we are airborne.
Romeo, automated weather observation 1800 Zulu. Wind 281 at 4.
So we've got the ATIS helping us out, so we'll go and detune the radio to shut ATIS up.
Automated weather observation 1800 Zulu.
Interesting.
Wind 281 at 4.
That's got rid of it. Okay, so we're just climbing out, flaps back up. Quite a bit of turbulence actually. So we will turn to the reciprocal direction, which will be 230. Just coming up towards 1500 feet. So you can see the airfield down there. Engine back, pull the mixture back a bit. So we're just flying the reciprocal of the runway direction. We're going to keep this really short and sweet today. Just a really quick circuit around Frederick, come straight back in. Sim going to break? Just frozen, hasn't it? I think it's server issues going on at the moment. It's very odd. Okay, so we look behind us, so let's sit back down so we can see where the airfield is, or sit up even. So we're waiting to see the airfield. Just kind of underneath the tail, and then we'll begin turning in. Okay. So begin turning and descending as we go. If we scoot across the cockpit, we can actually see around to the runway, judge it fairly well. So it flaps back down. Just come back in over the numbers. It's funny, isn't it? Frederick isn't modelled very well in the simulator. It's a bit strange. Okay, so onto the wheel brakes, flaps back up, and taxi back in. So the key about being able to stop and start ACARS is you can only start the flight in ACARS if you are on the ground at the departure airport with your wheel brakes or your parking brakes on. You can only stop the flight if you are on the ground at the destination or the secondary airfield with the engine off and the parking brake on. Those are the only rules. So you don't need to worry too much about the configuration of the aeroplane when you stop and start ACARS. But of course, as soon as you're in the air, ACARS will be watching you, and while you're taxiing, ACARS will be watching you, and it will nail you if you taxi too fast. So if you go racing off around the airfield like a sports car, you will get a negative rating for it. Okay, so we're just taxiing in. And we'll pull up alongside the others. So we can view the outside. There's no rules about what views you use or anything like that. Okay, parking brake on. Pull the mixture, and then we can go round and turn things off. So lights can come back off, pitot heat can come off, the avionics can come off, and the master switches can come off. And then we can go into ACARS and we can end the flight. The end button will not be available if you are not at the destination airfield with the engine off and the parking brake on. So your PIREP has been successfully received. So PIREP is short for Pilot Report. And you can now close ACARS or start another flight. It may take up to 10 minutes for your flight to be processed, and we'll say OK. So at this point we can actually close ACARS. I'm going to actually close the simulator as well, because we're not really that worried about it. And then we'll open up VirtualFlight.Online. And if we go to the front page of VirtualFlight.Online, you'll see where people are that are flying right now. You can click on them, by the way. So if you wanted to see more about somebody that's flying, you can actually see, where they've been, where they're going, how they're doing. So he's descending at the moment. It's very cool, isn't it? So if we scroll down, you can see the latest dispatch flights as we saw earlier. Those are the latest ones that have come in. So remember, it said it could take a few minutes before it appears. So if we go and have a look, we'll go and look at some of my older flights. So if I go look in my logbook history, I can see my old flights. So give it a moment to load it. So you can see, where's a good one? We'll have a look at this one. TNA06. So Tour of North America, I believe that was. So I had 2 fails, look, when I did that flight. Landing lights, I didn't use them accurately, and I had a overspeed. In other words, I oversped the aircraft. So, and you can see the full log of what came out of ACARS during your flight. Also, you can see where you flew. So I was going from La Paz over to somewhere in Colombia. So let's go and have another look and go to my dashboard. Frederick is there, look, previous flight, it has appeared. So if I go and look now in the front page of the website, and scroll down and look in there it is, KFDK-C172, that was the flight number, that's me. So if I click on it, I can see I've got 100%. Obviously it was a very, very simple flight. We were just flying around in a little Cessna doing a circuit, but you can see there were no stalls, there were no crashes. We used the landing lights appropriately. We didn't overspeed. We didn't taxi overspeed. We didn't overspeed below 10,000 feet. That really doesn't count for GA planes, but obviously with something like a 737, that's an issue because you're 250 knots below 10,000. Beacon off, engine on. We followed that. SLU detected? No, we didn't use SLU, and we didn't pause either. So you will be penalised for pausing the simulator. Other than that, yeah. So you can see there's lots of data there about your landing rate and things like that. So you can see I got a landing rate of 154 feet per minute, which is perfectly fine. And you see the track of exactly where you flew. So if we go now and have a look on the events page, you can see that if I go back into the USA Flight School, that leg is now ticked. I have completed it. So here's the trick with the tours. When you've completed all the legs of a tour, you win an award and it appears on your profile. So if I go and view my profile, you can see I've got a few badges. I've not done many of the tours. I tend to organise them and don't fly them myself. Some people have done scores of them. But you'll realise when you look at them, some of the tours are huge, some of them aren't so big. So if we look at the Italy cross-country tour, for example, designed for GA aircraft, there's 7 legs on that one. Yeah, and you can go and view one of the legs and see where it goes from and to. But some of them are much bigger. So if we look at the British Isles tour, for example, it's a much, much bigger tour. It's got, you can see I've completed it. It's got 32 legs. But look at them. They go all over the coast of the UK and Ireland. So England, Wales, Scotland, back down through England. It's very cool. So we have tours and events for all areas of the world for GA aircraft. We've got tours that are more suited to turboprops, so that, you know, a bit longer leg length and maybe more dangerous or difficult areas of the world to fly in. You've also then got the longer legs, so things that suit the jets, so going coast to coast across America, for example. If we go and look at the legs there, jumping across sort of 300 miles at a time. If we carry on down, we've got the Class B tours. The classes are, the aeroplanes are really divided into classes. So when you are picking a plane, it really depends on how many hours you have filed. So the more hours you file, the more classes you qualify for. There's lots of information about that in here. So if you look in rank structure, for example, you can see how many hours you have filed. That's on your pilot reports. So they accumulate and you get upgraded in rank as you go. So you can see, yeah, there's Class B tours. So there's a world tour in the Class B tours that covers the entire world. There's 30 legs and it goes all over the entire globe. Class A tours are the intercontinental trips. So you've got, for example, London to San Francisco, which is huge and takes like 10 hours. There's some historic tours, so you can retrace the path taken by Amelia Earhart, for example. So you can see there's lots and lots of legs, but it's actually the real legs that she took, or as close as we can get to them with existing real-world airports today. So you can retrace her steps. Some of them are actually really difficult. But anyway, so that's VirtualFlight.Online, and that's the airline. And that's ACARS as well, you saw, where you could file your flights automatically. If you can't get ACARS to work, or if you're using, say, an Xbox or something like that, you can also do a thing called a manual PIREP. So you come in here and you fill the form out. Yeah, it's worth noting, if you are wanting to complete a leg, what you have to do is go to Tours and Events, pick the leg. So say I was going to do another flight school event in the US. Say I was going to do the one with the Cessna 152. So I could view it, I could dispatch it. Now say I want to file it by hand instead of using ACARS, because there's some reason why I can't use ACARS. I can do a manual PIREP. Notice if you have dispatched, the form is already filled out. You have to do that to get it to tick the legs. Yeah. So I would fill this out by hand, submit it, and it will tick the leg off, no questions asked. We work on trust. We don't vet what people are submitting. Obviously, if somebody is massively abusing the system, it may come to light and we would then start looking. But otherwise, it's all based on trust. It's all very informal and friendly. But look at how many flights we've had. 18,000 flights filed by nearly 800 pilots now, 22,000 hours filed, 4.5 million miles covered. It's been a huge, huge success, and we don't really know, where it will end. We do write regular newsletters as well, so you get to read about, you can see exploring the New Zealand scenery, the new scenery update. So we did a news update about that, tell people, what's in the scenery update, and take them to the tours where you can go and fly around New Zealand. So you can see this is the North Island tour, and there's a similar one for the South Island. So there you go. So hopefully that's dispelled some fears you may have had about how the virtual airline works and whether you should be able to take part. All you really need is Flight Simulator and either run ACARS or file manual PIREPs and fill them in by hand. So if you're on the Xbox, there's no reason why you can't take part. Okay, I'll leave it there, and I'll see you again soon.